Hmm. You know, it just doesn't look right. I'm sorry. This is a peasant house in the desert village, and it's nice. Got a little chair to sit on, a regular bed, little cactus. It's great, right? Right? And that got me thinking, what is the desert village really based off of? I took a lot of influence off of Egyptian houses. Now, in ancient Egypt, obviously, we get lots and lots of the sand, the sandstone. I can't find it in there. But yes, you get lots of the sand, the sandstone kind of blocks, terracotta, great stuff. But that's not what they were actually like. Oh, let's let the chicken in. Come in. Okay, you don't want it. Anyway, they were actually made out of brick. I mean, think of how impractical it would be to... Oh gosh. That sun's going down. Come on. I had to actually look at my keyboard there a second. Sorry. Think about how impractical it would be to cut smooth sandstone for every single house. I mean, just think about that for a moment. Obviously, you're not doing that for every single peasant that lives because, one, it's incredibly expensive, but two, you're gonna... It's so much labor intensive that what are you gonna live in while you're cutting the stone? And are you just gonna hire out the stone cutter from the village next door and lower back and forth every time? No. Instead, every year when the Nile floods through, you're just gonna scoop the mud up that's already all over the ground and make bricks. Sure, the bricks will only last 2 to 3 years, but it's gonna be a lot easier and a lot more practical to replace a brick or two here and there as they crack and dry out from the sun than to hire out somebody to make a bunch of stone bricks. It just is. So, the typical arrangement will look a lot more like this. I mean, after all, it's a desert. It's hot. You don't want a lot of indoor space. You want things to be outside. Because without modern air conditioning or things like that, it's just untenable. You're going to store your grain low to the earth, below all the layers of your house, because you want it to remain cool and dry. You want it to introduce the least amount of terrible things going on, but you're also going to keep your livestock down here. I have seen evidence of mostly birds, less of sheep, for example, because it's just so hot. And then, of course, your ovens, and a lot of people are going to be making clay goods, just because it's one of the things we actually have the supplies for. Now, inside the actual living arrangements, what I did find evidence for was nice windows. I hear these shutters in here because I figure when the wind picks up, you don't want sand getting everywhere. You're going to want to shut those down, especially like if it's raining. You want the ability to kind of lock in a little bit of a thing. But also, it's very important to keep them open a lot because you want steady airflow throughout the day so that your actual living space is nice. Now you may notice there's not exactly beds in here. Well, that's because the evidence I found is that they would be up on the roof. When it got to be nice and cool during the night, you might throw up a little shade here made out of reeds and leaves. you want a nice cool place to sleep, and the desert actually gets quite cool at night. So you would have these beds that would be just kind of parked up here. They wouldn't really have blankets like this though. They would be lifted off the floor like that and then interwoven with reeds. No blankets, no mattress. You want to keep airflow as light and bright as possible because you have been sweating all day over these hot stoves, running around chasing your chickens, minding the children. It's been a long day. Now, all the evidence that I did find did point to large families at this time being born, but obviously infant mortality is still really, really, really high. So you might end up with families of 2 to 4, which is very sad. But unfortunately, because the reign of Egypt is very long, but there's not a lot of good, solid research I found on actual buildings and academic life due to these, or everyday life, because these bricks would break down very easily in 2 to 4 years, causing just little remains to be left, little archaeological sites. So not much. And the rule of Egypt is very long, very long. Especially when you consider how short-lived even today's societies are. I mean, it really lasted, like over 1,000 years, and they achieved a lot. But unfortunately, just the works of the everyday peasants, the everyday man, woman, and child, what their life looked like, isn't well documented. And of the paintings that I've seen, a lot of them are of mythology and not of people that lived outside of just rulers. Like, sure, I can find works about Horus and, just all the gods, or works about Cleopatra. But what regular citizens did on a day-to-day basis, but all I can find is evidence that looks like this. This would be a typical farmhouse. This is what a typical life would look like. And a little house like this wouldn't have really worked. Where would you put your grain? Where would you put your livestock? Where's your oven? And importantly, there's not a lot of good airflow in here. You can't lock things in. You can't trap it up. You can't. It just doesn't really work. And then the walls themselves are going to be more expensive than what most people see in the day-to-day life. Oh my gosh, that camel is so cute. Just a happy little guy. Look at him. Oh, and the ears move. Okay, I obviously need to learn more about camels. But that's what I found mostly. Now, obviously, there would be big sites everybody's familiar with. The pyramids. People are familiar with large sphinxes. And this is almost like an obelisk, except the obelisks would not be buildings. They would just be sticking in the sand, large and all the way up. Anyway, that's just my mini rant on Egyptian houses. I couldn't think of any other. I looked into like the Aztecs, because I don't know, the Byzantines. None of them were just striking. Why are there so many villagers? My goodness. None of them were just striking into what I would think of as this kind of architecture and setup. All right. Bye-bye.